the first thing that I think that girls need to do when they start speaking to guys, and this is you've met them in a club, or you've like matched them on Tinder, or you've started chatting to them from work, or whatever it might be. When you first begin speaking to them, I think that girls get too much of a bad rap for giving lads a hard time and making them jump through hoops. Personally, for me, I don't think they're making them jump high enough. Like, I think that the hurdles that are laid down by girls for men, especially when you're talking 20, 21, 22, 23, but up to, up throughout the whole way through life, I think the higher that the hurdles are, as long as you are making sure that the man knows that you're interested and that you're giving them sufficient attention to know that they're going to continue to play the game, I think it's a win-win scenario, including for the men, right? And let me tell you why. So, firstly, if you're laying down, and by laying down hurdles, what I mean is not folding or compromising on something that you think, when they do something wrong, you tell them straight away and you put them in their place. When they make plans and they cancel them, you don't need to go overboard. You don't need to be passive aggressive, and we'll get onto that in a second, because that is the number one way to remove the integrity of what you're saying, right? Passive aggressiveness for me is up there with the top no-nos that girls should do in relationships, and guys as well. By laying down these hurdles for girls, the first thing that it does is it certifies that the guy who you're speaking to is invested in you in the long term. If they're not prepared to get past you asking them a question about their last relationship, or you asking them to make plans for a night out, if you ask them, okay, let's go out on Wednesday, but I'm going to let you plan the date. I'll plan the next one, but you plan the date. And you turn up and he then says, I've got nothing planned. You need to tell him that he's fucked up. You need to say, that's shit. That's not a good investment in your time.
So it's the example there is having a principle and making sure that the principle is upheld.
Draw some hard lines in the sand of what is and is not acceptable behaviour.
So I think I've seen both ends of the spectrum where either there is shit testing for shit testing's sake, and it almost is like it's contrived, it's just trying to give someone a hard time for the sake of it, but there's no real underlying principle. Very similar to if you've seen the argument clinic on Monty Python, where he goes into the room and he's like, hello, am I in the right room for an argument? He's like, no, you aren't. Like,
yeah. That's
no.
Can you briefly explain what shit testing is, please, for people who don't know pickup artistry?
Ultimately, I'd like to get onto pickup artistry as well. But yeah, so shit testing, just what you've said, giving someone a hard time or to see how they respond.
It's for the purpose. It's the purpose of doing that, though, right?
Purely for that, without an underlying.
It's the female
intention.
equivalent of negging, right?
Yeah. What my point is that there has to be a certain agenda, and that has to be a stable set of principles.
It's got to be born out of integrity.
Whereas at one point in the argument clinic, he's like, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, hang on. This isn't an argument. This is just contradiction. He's like, no, it isn't. Yes, it is. Like, an argument is a series of statements formed around a specific foundational point, whereas you're just disagreeing with everything that I say. And so there's the difference. I think, if it's upholding a certain set of values,
yes,
then yeah.
So you're totally right, and that's something that I've missed. And
the other side of it is just being a doormat.
It needs to be born of what do you consider as a girl to be acceptable and unacceptable behaviour in a man. Then draw the lines in the sand and don't compromise on them. So here's the reasons that it's good. That you are going to make sure that the men that you invest your time in are sufficiently invested in you. Because the ones who fall at the first hurdle and aren't prepared to get over it, what do you think was going to fucking happen when they're drunk in a nightclub and some girl comes up to them? It's making sure that they can bear a sufficiently heavy load, even at a fucking empty bar level of a heavy load, that when they have to go and do a 1 rep max in terms of virtue, that they might actually have the capacity to bear it. Does that make sense?
So it's looking at their bar speed when the bar is empty.
This is probably going to go over the head of a few girls. There's going to be 2 CrossFit girls that know what we're talking about.
They're like, but you're at the bar. But what if you're at a pub? You're like,
no. I'm talking about
why would I be in the bar?
So that's the first thing that's good.
Before we move on,
yeah,
these principles, if we are, for someone who's listening,
yeah,
does this apply? So I think there has to be a conversation of is this person looking for a one-night stand scenario? Are they looking to move towards Have I jumped ahead?
No.
No.
You've asked the perfect question.
All right. Because I think you have to begin with the end in mind, don't you?
If as a girl,
If
all
you're
that you're
shagging, then like,
if you want a pasting as a girl, like crack on, find a guy that is
Lower the barriers.
well lower the barriers, but heighten the standards. Like because if you want a one night stand, your parameters for what you're looking for in a mate change.
Yeah.
Intellectually, how bothered are you? But in terms of, you probably want someone who's a bit lean. You probably want someone who's muscular, who physically fits the attributes that you need. Whereas, we've all been around beautiful but stupid people, right? And vice versa. Really interesting people who we're not sexually attracted to.
And I find that dynamic so interesting because if you ask most women, and women, if you're listening and disagree, please say, but like any woman I've spoken to, and I've asked, would you have sex with a man who you find physically attractive but was really bored you, was boring as hell, as opposed to someone who you found attractive but you hated, and they'd prefer to have sex with a man who they hated because at least there's some intensity there, there's some passion.
Some feeling.
Whereas I think men are much different in the sense that like you could have sex with someone that you found quite boring.
I think
Obviously,
men
you
can
wouldn't want to
scale
spend
it to
time
a
with them,
very
but-
mechanical interaction, whereas I think women less so.
It's much more visceral as a man, right? So, perfectly correct. If all that you're looking for is sex, then change your parameters around.
So this is a different. That's
So I'm talking about dating. I wouldn't say
Okay.
I wouldn't class dating. If you need to go out on the pull, then we will do. And if you want a podcast on that, then we'll do a podcast on how to be single. Like how
this isn't trading. It's investing. This isn't
Exactly.
This isn't
Yes.
day trading. It's not short term positions. This is I'm looking for a long term position. Right.
yeah. So
It's not going hell for leather on cryptos. This
Yeah.
is like
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're not margin trading. You're not doing 50 times
wealth creation.
Yes, exactly. So
Hopefully that made it much clearer for everyone.
So that's the first thing that's good, right? So it means that you filter out the bottom feeders, the men who aren't worth your time, and you jump ahead a couple of steps. So cool. Second thing that's good is it sets a tone for the relationship moving forward. That means that you're not going to take shit. So we all know, and we'll get onto this when we do relationships, the proper relationships podcast. For me, the key in almost every relationship is like the first 6 weeks to 10 weeks. The reason being that you set precedent after precedent after precedent for what happens in X situation and Y situation and Z situation. What happens when you don't get a message after someone's been on a night out saying that they've got home safe? How do you react? How do you react when they get in late? How do you react when they cancel a date? How do you react when they do whatever? So I forgot to say, that particular camera can only do around about 20 minutes at a time. So every so often,
It'll go.
I'm going to pass it on to you. I'm going to have to get up and I'm going to have to change it. Thanks, video guy Dean.
You're going to pass it on to, as in we speak.
And then I'm going to get up and get to that. If you're just listening, that's completely pointless, but it's fine. So it sets the tone for the relationship moving forwards, right? It means that you are drawing lines in the sand, not only for now that filter out potential mates, but you're also training them to be a good mate for you. The third and final one, and this is the one that I think is most holistic moving forward, is men really, in fact, I'm going to make this into a 4. Thirdly, men really fucking need this. The reason being that it makes them learn what is and is not acceptable behavior for women. Like if you are with a guy and you find out that he's been messaging your mate and you think that based on your own values and your own integrity, you think that is unacceptable behavior and you bin him off, that's only going to happen to him 2 or 3 times before he goes, I probably need to change my behavior. The reason that this continues to happen is that guys are able to wheedle their way through, and this is speaking from experience because for years and years and years, I was able to outwit girls that I was seeing to one degree or another, whatever level of depth you want to say that is. And I was able to get myself out of it, so I never learned.
This is the Parkinson's law, like in a social context. So Parkinson's law is where a task fills the time that you've allocated to it. And I'm sure if you've been working to a deadline with an essay or something, and you're like, for some reason, there's no way you can just get it done a week in advance in a 2-hour slot.
Night before.
It always extends to that. And the same thing, like if a certain behavior is permitted frequently, then you lower your own standards for yourself.
Gets reinforced.
And so as a man, you want someone to hold you to a higher standards. Like Earl Nightingale says, the treat a man as you expect him to be, not as he is, and give him the room to expand to that and to rise up to
That's
that
perfect.
challenge. So
that quote has managed to make a good synopsis, I think, of everything that I've come up with here. So, go on.
I think as a 21-year-old or even younger, like 20-year-old, I was too ego-driven to have probably realised I think as a young guy, you take a lot of advice like this, or I know this isn't aimed at guys, this part, or is it?
Well, it can be, it should be, because guys should realise they can make implications from this. The vast majority of the audience that's listening to this, maybe 2/3 of it are men.
Are men, okay.
I think all of the behaviours you've covered,
There's a flip to
they
both sides.
they exist on
You need
both,
to understand.
both directions.
Yeah. And I think that men should be interested in why women are motivated the way that they are, and women should be vice versa.
And men should hold women to a higher standard of behaviour as well.
Just wait, we're going to get there.
Okay.
I think it's hard to, as a guy that age, when I think you're finding your own feelings and your own beliefs in a lot of areas like this, like what do I think's true in these situations, you're forming judgments based on experiences, and someone says, actually, women, a woman should treat you like this. I think a lot of guys, when faced with higher standards or sort of a framework that they have to operate in, sort of resist and go for the person who's not doing that.
Lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It's just easier.
Yeah,
but they don't want to be challenged with that. But again, as girls, do you want to be low hanging fucking fruit?
No, of course.
Of course not. We go back to the first advantage that you get. The fact that you filter out the guys that aren't worth your time. And again, with this, there's kind of like a curve, right? So one night stand is this particular level, and then I want marriage is this particular level, and then anywhere in between.
There's some, yeah.
Do you understand? So you can go, okay, well, I can lay down lines in the sand that are sufficiently hard as I need to. But imagine if tomorrow every woman on the planet adhered to a similar framework as this. There would be a lot less standards. There would be a lot less sex for a long time. But imagine where men would be in 20 years.
So
like if you want to have sex with a woman, you have, or if you want to be in a relationship with a woman, you have to learn how to treat her correctly. You have to learn what is not acceptable behavior. And if you fuck up, you will be better for the next woman who comes around.
So this is coming from this whole conversation is coming from a perspective of like women are on the victim side of this equation. Like men mistreat women.
But men are the sexual protagonists, and
women give access to that.
Women, female women.
That's probably a correct statement. Isn't it?
The female kind.
Human females is what I meant.
Got it.
Human females are the only females in the animal kingdom that are sexually selective, right?
Okay.
So if a chimpanzee's on heat, she'll mate with the alpha male, but only because he's there. Given the opportunity, she'll mate with any male when she's on heat.
Okay.
The only reason she mates with the alpha male is because there's a threat of violence and because they're available.
Big bench press.
Yeah, and he's got.
He will be. I bet he does.
He's got the biggest bench press. He does. So